So before I start the video and get into the meat and potatoes of everything, I just want to let everybody know that this video is not meant to be negative whatsoever. I have over 1,000 hours in these games in Left 4 Dead 1 and 2, mostly Left 4 Dead 2. But I've always wondered what it would be like to have a Left 4 Dead 3, and the more I think about it, the more I realize that that's not really feasible or possible. And I think a more realistic approach is going to be fixing a few core problems Left 4 Dead 2 has, and updating certain things to make it a Left 4 Dead 2.5, if you will. So let me begin by explaining the video chapters. Chapter 1 is going to be about the special infected, and what exactly makes them special, what roles they fill, that kind of thing. Chapter 2 is going to be about map design, and how challenging it can be to create a balanced, fun Left 4 Dead map. Chapter 3 is going to be about the Left 4 Dead 2 developers and who are still employed at Valve, and what the Left 4 Dead 2 head developers are doing today. Chapter 4 is going to be about simplicity in game design, and how Left 4 Dead 2 manages to make simple gameplay fun, and how it doesn't need to add all of the things current modern games have added, such as battle passes, cosmetics, but we'll get into that later. And last but not least, Chapter 5, which will cover the current problems with Left 4 Dead 2, and how a 2.5/remake/remaster would be more beneficial. And then I will close with my final thoughts. I'm going to start by saying that I believe there is the perfect amount of special infected in Left 4 Dead 2. I think the developers have thought of all of the possible ways to manipulate the survivors, and each special infected cover a unique niche and all have their important, impactful roles. I'm going to break these roles down to get a better understanding of how difficult it would be to create a new, unique, useful, and balanced special infected. We will start with the jockey. The jockey is a crowd controller slash disabler. He is one of the more annoying special infected to use, for reasons that will be talked about later. But the jockey focuses on separating the team and forcing misdirection. With low damage per second while attacking, an experienced player would rather use the jockey to bring survivors into environmental hazards, like ledges, spitter goo, and fire. He sets up other special infected for plays, like death charges, or steering players right into the witch. He is difficult to shoot, but doesn't have too much HP. And I believe the jockey is balanced because you can fight his movement with your own in a tug-of-war style mechanic. Next up, we have the spitter. Now, the spitter is a area controller slash zoner. The spitter's role really is to support other special infected in attacks with her goo ability. She can punish survivors who like to corner camp. She also can deny revives for a decent amount of time if you manage to get a good hit on an incapacitated survivor. But veteran players will usually team coordinate with hunters, chargers, smokers, and jockeys to do massive stacking damage to the survivors. She has pretty low HP and is very easy to kill in a few shots, but I think she's balanced because she does exponential damage, meaning the longer you stand in the goo, the more damage it will do, and it does very minimal damage at first, but if you stand in it for too long, it will lead to massive amounts of damage. Third on our list is going to be the Charger. He is a initiator slash disruptor. A knowledgeable Charger player can honestly completely change the outcome of a match, especially if you know the maps. The Charger creates instant chaos and separation. I know he is one of the strongest to engage the survivors besides the tank, attack and HP wise. If you manage to grab the survivor, you can do massive DPS. You can also give a stumble animation to any other survivors you happen to charge as well. Map knowledge is absolutely critical to get death charges, which are charges that can instantly kill survivors, like charging into water or out of windows. The charger also has a secondary punch attack that does very good damage. He is balanced, in my opinion, because there's no turning during a charge. You are really vulnerable if you miss a charge, and poor engagements usually result in death. He also has a very big hitbox. Fourth on the list, we have the Boomer, who is a disruptor slash enabler. Boomer, I'd argue, is probably the number one most important special infected in the game if you're playing versus mode. So, if you're able to boom, I'd say, a majority of survivors, you can create a pretty massive opening for your team. Obviously, you're removing vision and summoning hordes, which can be the perfect remedy for the attacking infected to move in and punish the team. Now, very experienced players are going to go for rocket booms or unexpected spawns to break the survivor's cohesion. They might even, camp a car alarm and bait the enemy to shoot him, causing the alarm to go off. The boomer is very unexpected in the hands of a very, very good player. I believe the boomer is balanced because he has the lowest HP in the game, 50 HP. So most weapons can one or two shot him. Actually, most weapons can two shot. I think even the pistol can. Very slow movement, especially when he's puking, and a large hitbox. But he also gives tanks the confidence to move in and finish the job. Next on our list is going to be the Hunter, number 5. He is an assassin slash disabler. I'd say the Hunter is kind of almost the opposite of the Jockey, not necessarily in terms of everything, but the Hunter, opposed to dragging somebody, can rapidly take down a stationary survivor if you understand how he works mechanically. Positioning, aim, and movement can increase your damage output due to the fact that he has instant pounce damage based on how high you pounce the survivors. This can obviously lead to massive instant damage followed up by a fast DPS. He's also one of the few infected who can actually just shred incapacitated health. The Hunter is pretty balanced because you have to commit to an angle exposing yourself. He has a very noticeable audio cue when you're about to attack. It's also easily dealt with if 4 survivors have good cooperation and they stick together. He's also pretty vulnerable midair. If you're versing against a good player, they will probably shoot you midair if you're in there for too long. And our 6th and final standard playable special infected is going to be the Smoker. The Smoker, he's like a pick specialist slash disabler. The Smoker's role is to separate one survivor from the group with long range attacks. I'd say he's most valuable when survivors are already distracted or preoccupied. You can also smoke survivors into dangerous areas like spitter goo, car alarms, fire, and ledges. Experienced players will also help line up charges for chargers and position themselves in a way for the enemy to not see their line of sight. I'd say a good example of this would be like smoking the last person in the line and then hiding behind an object like a truck to make the survivors travel all the way to your exact spot. Instead of just, exposing yourself to their line of sight right away. I think the Smoker is pretty balanced because you're still able to shoot for a second or two after you get pulled. And you can also use sharp bladed melee weapons to cut the tongue in like a quick time event type of deal. So yeah. Number 7 is going to be the Tank. Now he's going to be our special boss slash bruiser. Now, I think the Tank is simply a skill check for the infected team and the survivors. I think it's pretty important to know how to engage while using the Tank. A good tank will force, throwables, split the survivors up, use in-game objects like cars or trees to instantly incapacitate a survivor. A good tank will also always pressure the survivors. It's the most efficient way to attack, as he cannot be shoved. Especially after boom support is critical, you manage to engage. Team morale can easily plummet if tank wipes survivors quickly, or if the tank dies quickly. His special infected is simply the make it or break it for the outlook of a match. He has the highest HP and attack damage, but the tank is still balanced for having a gigantic hitbox. He can easily be dealt with by using a Molotov and focus fire from all survivors, and there's usually specific areas in the map that are wide open, which are relatively optimal for fighting tanks, which experienced players will most likely backtrack to. So if you see teammates saying /back in chat, that is a good indicator to follow them to a safe location. And last but not least, definitely not least, we have the Witch, who is a sub-boss / environmental punisher. While she cannot exactly be controlled, a good infected team can use the Witch to their advantage. Most notably, a smoker or a jockey are probably the most useful for that situation, but you can use a charger and hunter if you're precise enough. I'd say she forces coordination and heavily slows the pacing of the game. If you are not careful around a witch, it is easy to find yourself from 100 to on the ground. Whether it's from a stray bullet or forced aggression by the special infected, she definitely amplifies mistakes made under pressure. There's also two witch variants. There's the sitting and then the wandering witch. Now, the wandering witch walks slowly and is harder to avoid. She's more likely to be startled. And there's also no startle animation for the witch getting up. But she is balanced for multiple reasons. You can crown a witch, which involves timing a shotgun shot to the back of her neck to one-hit kill a witch. She's also one of the loudest special infected. You can hear her from pretty far away. And then what I like to do is simply just throw a molly and have all 4 survivors mow her down. The molly causes like a staggering effect and a slowing effect. If you find a teammate startling the witch, expect everybody to attack. Now, with all of that being said, a common theme you'll notice is that all of these special infected synergize with one another, while also providing unique playstyles and balancing to make playing the infected and versing the infected an enjoyable time. All of the special infected are also balanced for having distinct audio cues before they attack and when they spawn. Experienced players are very aware of what audio cues match each special infected. I believe that there's just no more roles to be filled, and that there simply isn't any left. Valve has had to scrap in progress special infected. A couple notable ones include the Screamer, who was later altered into the Boomer. The Screamer would scream and attract hordes. He was cut because its role was too difficult to identify and kill within crowds. He could also just run away, leading you to have to focus him, which can get pretty boring. The Leaker, who would leak infectious fluids constantly and left damaging trails on the ground. It was apparently cut for slowing down gameplay too much. I'm not exactly sure what else it would have done. So if you can think of any special infected, like if you can come up with your own, please let me know in the comments below, because I would be more than happy to entertain the thoughts of special infected. I think that's pretty fun to do. For the start of this chapter, we're going to go ahead and just take a quick look real quick at what the exact difference in design philosophy is between Left 4 Dead 1 and Left 4 Dead 2. Left 4 Dead 2 has 14 official campaigns in its arsenal. The most popular include No Mercy, Dead Center, and Dark Carnival. I'd also say the Parish too, that's a pretty good one. But even compared to Left 4 Dead 1 maps, you can notice that there is a distinct goal between each of the developers. Turtle Rock, the main developers behind Left 4 Dead 1, they mostly had a set atmosphere throughout the whole set of the maps, for all of the campaigns basically, which mostly include dark and forestry urban areas like No Mercy, Death Toll, Dead Air, and Blood Harvest, to name a few. While these maps are absolutely still playable, especially when you're not playing versus mode, most of these maps include tight hallways, funnel routes, and overall extremely punishing choke points. This is more noticeable with the introduction of the new special infected from Left 4 Dead 2. The survivors usually have to be on their toes when they're playing a Left 4 Dead 1 map, especially with all the trees, rocks, and overall foliage around the map the AI and versus players can take advantage of. I'd also argue that the finales are relatively pretty static compared to Left 4 Dead 2. Most of them involve holding a position and holding until rescue arrives, like No Mercy. This would heavily promote camping. While the new and special infected sure do help, it can sometimes be a very boring and static finale until a tank spawns. Fortunately, Valve has had experience in understanding while helping work on Left 4 Dead 1 to improve the flow of Left 4 Dead 2 maps. You are brought through swamps, carnivals, and rural towns. Some provide different challenges like hard rain, like having intense storms and rising water throughout the end of the campaign. Swamp Fever has murky water that also slows you down if you do not navigate the map correctly. Each campaign has its own uncommon infected, like the Sita zombies in Dead Center, or the clowns in Dark Carnival. When it comes to versus, I think most of the community would agree that besides a few Left 4 Dead 1 maps, like No Mercy for its strategic infected spawns, I still personally don't like the finale, and Dead Air for its open environments, Left 4 Dead 2 still has the more balanced and unique campaigns. It probably helped that they had to take into account the new specials when making the new campaigns, and each campaign in Left 4 Dead 2 has a unique finale. Dead Center has you fill gas cans for a car so the survivors can escape. Dark Carnival has you holding a massive open area with relentless hordes inside a Midnight Riders concert. Hard Rain has a huge thunderstorm rolling in through as the survivors try to hold the Burger Tank store. The Parish is a straight beeline across a bridge to safety, no defense strategies, which makes that one of my favorite finales. But would you agree or disagree that Left 4 Dead 2 has more balanced finales? I agree, but if you don't, please let me know. Valve, I think, just had competitiveness in mind when they were making their maps. Veteran players will utilize the maps in Left 4 Dead 2 to their benefit, like dead drops, death charge spots, and lead drops. They're critical areas to keep in mind for both the survivors and infected. But in both titles, most of the environment paths are shown to you with super obvious objects and hints throughout the campaign, making it easier for new players to learn without making them feel stupid. But I think overall, most of the Left 4 Dead 2 maps feel like they have way more open space, more attack angles, fewer camping spots, and better verticality. If Left 4 Dead 1 was the experiment, Left 4 Dead 2 was the refinement. Allegedly, Valve did try an open world design when approaching Left 4 Dead 3, but they failed to balance it in a way that has become the standard for a solid Left 4 Dead map. I'm going to assume that's because the AI director didn't exactly work the way it does in the more linear campaign design. There's plenty of community-made maps that easily showcase how hard it is to balance the game for versus mode. If you consider that even the 14 official maps have their problems, you can easily tell why this would be a very daunting task for the next team that were to jump on Left 4 Dead 3. Something else that I just wanted to add that I personally like about the Left 4 Dead 2 campaigns is the specific soundtracks that will play at certain chapters, such as the concert in Dark Carnival featuring the Midnight Riders.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The tank also gets his own special Midnight Riders theme when he spawns in. The Bride gets her own theme in the Passing campaign. And the tank also gets a metal version of his spawn theme during the Last Stand finale. To conclude this chapter, considering everything that I just mentioned, it would be a massive challenge for any Left 4 Dead 3 development team to craft a campaign that works for versus and single player mode or co-op mode, while having all the qualities that make a Left 4 Dead campaign fantastic. This is going to be a shorter chapter, however, I still feel like it's necessary to talk about the main developers behind Left 4 Dead 2, so here we go. Does Valve still have the brains to make a Left 4 Dead sequel? While Valve can still make a good game when they want to, I think it's safe to consider who would even be tasked with making a Left 4 Dead 3, since Left 4 Dead 2 was released in 2009, which was a long time ago. I'd like to first take a look and see if any of the head developers for Left 4 Dead 2 are still in the company, and all of Turtle Rock Studios' development team left to make their own vision of a Left 4 Dead, which everybody knows did not pan out to expectations. First, we're going to start with Mike Booth, who was the lead designer. He left Valve in 2013 to join Blizzard Entertainment as a head game director. He is currently Chief Creative Officer at Bad Robot Games Studio. Most recently, he posted a beta invitation to his 4-player co-op game on the Left 4 Dead 2 Reddit around 6 months ago. I actually did receive that invitation, although I have not played it yet. Next, we have Chet Falazek, I think that's how you say it, I hope so anyways, who was the lead writer. He left Valve in 2017 with just a desire to move on, founded his own studio called Stray Bombay, releasing the Anacrusis, a game with mixed reviews and generally went under the radar. Third, we have Mike Moraski, who is the composer. He made the music for Left 4 Dead 2. He is currently still active at Valve and composes many of their recent titles, including Half-Life Alyx, Aperture Desktop, and Counter-Strike 2. Fourth, we have Jeremy Bennett, artist-designer. Left Valve in 2018. He was the designer for Survivors and Infected alongside the maps. Current activity is unknown from what I could find. Last, we have Kim Swift, game design / AI director. Left Valve in 2009, shortly after Left 4 Dead 2's release, specifically tasked with making the AI director as optimized and fun as possible. Boasts quite a resume with joining Airtight Games in 2009, Amazon Game Studios in 2018, Google Stadia in 2021, and is currently Senior Director of Cloud Gaming at Microsoft. While it is super awesome to see that most of these guys and lady went on to do their own things, it's safe to say that most of the brains behind what made Left 4 Dead 2 feel like a necessary sequel to 1 are no longer with Valve. So I'm going to pose the question, could Valve even handle making a Left 4 Dead 3? I guess it's hard to say, but I mean Left 4 Dead 3 isn't here for a reason. Even with no progression, cosmetics, weapon customization, character customization, battle pass, crates, rewards, ranked playlists, challenges, skill trees, loot rarity tiers, crafting system, or events, Left 4 Dead 2 remains on the top 100 played games on Steam in the Steam charts because it replaces all of that with good fun and replay value and community-made content. I personally don't see a world where a current dev team wouldn't add 2026 cosmetic and design practices to appease a casual audience. You could argue Deadlock, which is also developed by Valve, has none of these things I mentioned and is in active development, but the keyword is active development. Who knows what monetary practices are down the pipeline? Valve definitely is not a saint when it comes to recent microtransactions in different games they have. I expect Deadlock to be involved in like the community market, like Dota, TF2, and CS2. I personally think what really carries the game is the AI director. It keeps each playthrough fresh with adjusting certain spawns for infected items and where they drop, how frequent they drop. The zombie hordes can be frequent or minimal depending on how good the team is doing. If you are doing really well, the game will throw more challenges at you. I personally noticed in my Hard Rain campaign that I have in the background throughout the whole video, there was at least like 10 to 12 witches in the sugar mill, which is very high even for the sugar mill. I was playing on advanced too, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Sometimes the director can even completely change parts of the map, like the maze in the parish. Sometimes they can be a little too nice in my opinion though and spam meds everywhere, like on chapter 2 of the parish. The gunplay is straightforward, the UI is super standard, it's really easy to understand and navigate. The map design isn't confusing, you just go from A to B and kill stuff on the way. Controls are very basic, you shoot, shove, heal, revive, and interact. But the true depth of the game comes from good positioning, team syncing, sound cue awareness, knowledge of the maps, and then special infected mechanics. It makes it really easy to not need anything modern multiplayer games forced down everyone's throats. Experienced players can dive into even more complex skills, such as crowning, tongue snaring, movement skills like bee hopping, and Hunter's skybox pounces, which gives a more rewarding experience than a level up. I simply do not trust any current development team to stick to these fundamentals, and it's been proven with Back 4 Blood. This is my roadmap for how Valve could save the current game without needing a sequel. With Valve developing Source 2, there could be a graphical and textural overhaul alongside animation overhauls, although they might have to consider the physics of the game to feel like the current Left 4 Dead 2 gameplay feels, like bunny hopping. Most people's PCs these days could easily handle a graphical update, and the way they optimize the campaign levels can easily help with the performance still. They would also need to do server restructuring. Ping is a major issue, especially in versus mode. Chargers and jockeys suffer the most from ping. You feel like you glide off survivors even though you feel like you should have caught them. I don't believe there is a region log either, as I have seen players with obscene amounts of ping. Optimized, dedicated servers, I think, would go a huge way in helping the game feel more responsive and competitive. Modded servers run rampant, such as Left 4 Dead servers. Servers that are not avoidable due to having a chance of being connected, even searching for an official dedicated server. Left 4 Dead servers are not the only ones. There's like heavily 4v4 modded servers with classes and absolutely broken perks that just don't feel like, the core of Left 4 Dead 2. And I think they should be in their own category. These servers still have their uses, such as easy practicing or just trying something different, having fun. But when I just want to play vanilla versus, it can be a chore to shift through all of the current active matches to find one that's still going that is a vanilla server. There is no punishment for leaving an infinite amount of matches. I think this causes most players to not feel like they have to commit to any match. You can just leave and find a different game whenever things look bleak. I think maybe a decent option would be after a few disconnects, you should receive some sort of a warning, followed up with a temp ban on repeat offenses. Having a reconnect to last match for like a minute or something before it fills up with someone else would be very helpful when it comes to crashes and such. I think it's fine when not getting anything for winning, but not being able to win in the first place because the server shuts down because the other team left feels very boring and kind of not motivating, really. Playing an entire campaign all the way through with both original teams is an exciting, unexpected event, which is usually only caused by tight match scores. Other things they could possibly add, but I don't think they would really need to add, would be maybe some new weapons, maybe new throwables, melee weapons, new mutations, maybe a new map that isn't 2 chapters long and playable in versus. I think it's kind of hard to catch up with only 2 opportunities. Basically, if you don't win the first chapter, you're probably not going to win the campaign. More quality of life settings, such as weapon/model FOV changes and crosshair customization. With everything being said, I do hope that this video wasn't too negative and sparks some sort of creative discussion. I love the Left 4 Dead series and wouldn't complain at all if they were able to, make a Left 4 Dead 3. But combining Valve's game philosophy of not making a game unless it's unique or progressive, and how specific a Left 4 Dead game design is, unfortunately I think it's safe to say Left 4 Dead 2 is here to stay in the spotlight. But I think it is a spotlight Valve could polish and refine a tad bit more. Either way though, I do hope you enjoyed this video, and more importantly, enjoy everything Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 has to offer. Take care, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you for watching.